Hey! Hey!
Greece, a land of endless pine forests, limestone mountains, and vineyards and olive groves passed down through generations. But behind this peaceful landscape, a silent invasion is spreading. Wild boars, fast-breeding, elusive, and highly adaptable, have begun to break the boundary between forest and farmland. They trample crops, uproot soil, and leave families devastated overnight. The field was fine when we went to bed, and by morning it was gone, recalls a farmer in Arcadia, and he is far from alone. This is no longer the burden of a single village or a single harvest. It has become a nationwide threat, as wild boar emerge as one of the most destructive invasive species in southern Greece. So we must ask, how did they become so dangerous? And can humanity reclaim balance from a nature slipping out of control? To find answers, we follow the Greek hunters, men who step into the forest not for glory, but for responsibility. And to understand why they must take up this role, we have to return to where this conflict began. You're watching Neo Farm, where we tell the stories of humanity's front line against invasive species across some of the harshest and most untamed landscapes on Earth. From here, we begin to see that this conflict does not start deep in the forest, but right at the boundary between human life and livelihood. In the wild, boars are simply a part of the ecosystem. But when they begin to appear near the villages, trampling vineyards, tearing up olive groves, breaking fences, and threatening livestock, they are no longer just wild animals. They become an immediate threat. Each ruined harvest wipes out an entire year of labor. Each barn breached places a family on the brink of losing everything. A failed season is one thing, but the moment I saw wild boars right at the edge of my field, I realized, if I don't stand up now, no one will protect this land, said a farmer in Arcadia, as deep furrows carved by hooves cut across the soil behind his home. It's estimated that wild boars now cause over 30 million euros in damage each year in Greece, an unprecedented number. But what is even more concerning is this: their population continues to grow. They adapt quickly, they reproduce rapidly, and with every encounter they learn how to avoid traps, evade hunters, and find new paths into farmlands. They are not retreating, they are pushing deeper, into fields, into villages, into the very spaces where humans live. Faced with this growing threat, the villagers tried to defend themselves. But this was never a fair fight. At first, they built stone fences, kept fires burning through the night, scattered flares around their vineyards, and hung bells throughout the olive groves as warning signals. Some even took up small hunting rifles, walking patrols along the narrow paths themselves. But wild boars are far too intelligent. They retreat for a night, then return from another direction. They don't just remember the land, they learn when people are exhausted. I shot 3 of them once, a farmer from Laconia told us, his voice rough from countless sleepless nights. But then another group came. Alone, I can't hold an entire field. For months, this was a solitary struggle, determined but hopelessly uneven. The damage grew, harvests vanished, and a quiet sense of defeat spread through the valley. But it is often in the moment that feels closest to despair that the history of a land begins to turn. And just as hope seemed to fade, another force stepped forward. Professional hunting teams, bringing trained hounds, proper equipment, and clear strategy. They do not hunt by instinct alone, but by wind, by terrain, by reading the movement of the boar itself. And when they move, everything changes. Within 3 months of coordinated operations across parts of Arcadia and Laconia, economic losses dropped by nearly 60%. The boar were driven back into the deep mountains. Torn soil slowly gave way to green vines once more. "We could never have done this alone," said a village elder, his gaze fixed on the forest. We needed people who understand the hunt, and now we have them. From desperation, the people shifted into counterattack, and for the first time in years, humanity reclaimed the advantage on its own land. But to reclaim the land, courage alone was not enough. Strategy was required. The arrival of professional hunting teams was not simply reinforcement. It marked a decisive shift from chaotic defense to a calculated population control campaign, sharp and deliberate, like a Spartan blade. They faced the wild boar not only with firepower, but with intellect, reading the land, the wind, and the patterns of movement, coordinating each step with precision across a harsh and unforgiving terrain. These men do not come with the spirit of conquest. To them, this is not a hobby nor a pastime. It is a burden of responsibility, a duty they carry to protect what is most sacred, the vineyards tended for centuries and the safety of their children. Their presence transformed a chaotic struggle into a disciplined, focused, and effective population control campaign. And to carry out that responsibility, they rely on a strategy as old as the land itself. At the heart of their approach is drive hunting, a method passed down from their ancestors since ancient times, now refined through modern technology and ecological knowledge. A tradition reborn with purpose. Greece is not a land of open plains. Its steep limestone mountains and dense pine boars serve as natural weapons for the wild boar. Shifting winds along the ridgelines can betray a hunter in an instant. Yet it is in this unforgiving terrain that these men have learned to read the forest's invisible map. But these men, Emwen, men who know every hill as well as the lines of their own hands, have turned that challenge into an advantage. To them, the forest is not a maze, it is a map. And every ravine, every shifting breeze, every narrow trail speaks with its own voice. They are strategists. When they look at satellite terrain maps, they see the wild boar's weaknesses. In narrow gorges and deep ravines, they don't see obstacles. They see choke points, the inevitable passages every herd must use. And this is where they position the standers. Seasoned hunters, veterans of the field, armed with large caliber rifles and advanced optical scopes, waiting in silence. In the shade of the trees and the mountain mist, they stand, not as mere hunters, but as the land's gatekeepers. The tactic begins with silence. Recon teams spend hours decoding the language of the ground. Tracks, droppings, and mud trails are analyzed like intelligence, revealing the herd's size, speed, and chosen routes. Once that picture is clear, they open the first phase, a controlled psychological push from the far slope, designed to steer the animals along the paths the hunters have already mapped and prepared. Every movement has intent, and every step has purpose. This battle line is not drawn with fences or walls, but with understanding. The driving teams do not rely on noise alone. They release highly trained hunting dogs, biological instruments of pursuit, each fitted with GPS trackers for precise coordination. If the wild boar is a master of silence and secrecy, then these dogs are the undoing of that secrecy. They chase relentlessly through the dry oak brush, breaking the herd's confidence and forcing them into motion. Panic takes hold, and the animals surge forward, not at random, but toward the open corridor the hunters have already mapped. In this strategy, knowledge is the weapon, the land is the arena, and the forest itself becomes the guide that leads the herd straight into the choke point. And then comes the inevitable encounter. The invader meets the protector. Every decision unfolds in a moment shorter than a single breath. At the ambush position, time is measured in seconds. The first rule of survival is to stand against the wind. The hunter must feel the shifting cold air along the limestone slopes. His finger rests on the trigger, not in anticipation of a trophy, but in honor of a vow to defend the vineyards and olive groves. This is not simply hunting, This is an act of ethical intervention, a deliberate attempt to restore balance to a land that has been left to chaos for far too long. Here, every shot is more than a choice. It's a declaration. Enough. In the pressure of a driven hunt, the tools must reflect speed, effectiveness, and a strict code of ethics. The teams favor semi-automatic rifles for rapid, controlled follow-up shots. The firearm in a hunter's hands is a measure of professionalism. For large bore, they move to 30 class power, roughly 7.62 millimeter. Cartridges such as the .308 Winchester and the .30-06 Springfield are preferred for their balance of penetration and manageable recoil. These rounds offer the power needed to overcome the boar's natural protections while still allowing for accurate, controlled fire. Ammunition is restricted to soft-point or purpose-built, expanding bullets, chosen deliberately to deliver maximum energy quickly and humanely, preventing wounded animals from fleeing to suffer. This is the hunter's moral rule: decisive force applied with precision and responsibility, aimed at restoring order to the land. This is not a game. It is a vow to the land that has sustained them for generations. In this harsh environment, mistakes are unforgivable. A single imprecise shot not only risks unnecessary suffering, it can send the herd into panic, break the cordon, and allow the animals to vanish forever into the rocky terrain. This is where moral discipline is tested. The goal is population control with the precision of a surgeon. Selection must be deliberate, aimed at the most damaging individuals, the dominant males, the ones whose removal will restore balance. Some go further. Some believe that silence has its own power. For a number of hunters, even the crack of a rifle is too great an intrusion on the forest's sacred quiet. They seek a more primal, quieter confrontation, one where personal skill and patience are everything. That is why, in the shadow of ancient olive groves, some have returned to the bow. There is no blast here, only breath, heartbeat, and the fragile span between life and absence. Bow hunting is a slow, deliberate act that demands the hunter close in, often within 30 meters, requiring absolute silence, the ability to melt into shadow, and the uncanny talent to read the forest's breath while waiting for the perfect moment. If the rifle is the tool of scientific precision, the bow is the art of absolute patience, the final gesture of respect toward the quarry before a necessary act of control.
Bravo! Bravo, ateş, ateş! Ateş, bravo, 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 bravo! Bravo, 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 bravo! Bravo, 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 bravo! Bravo, hayda! Hayda ateş! Aferin, bravo, bravo sana! Bravo!
The archer often moves alone or in small, silent groups, advancing ahead of the main team. They carry little, they move slowly, using wind and shadow to erase their presence. There is no technology to rely on, only instinct, experience, and the ability to read the land in minute detail. At 25 to 30 meters, the distance between a human and a wild boar leaves no room for mistakes. One misstep, one misplaced footfall, one unsteady breath, and the forest turns away instantly. In practice, the success rate for archers is lower, but when it succeeds, the approach leaves far less disturbance in the environment. The herd does not panic. Their natural movement remains intact, and the forest keeps its silence. This is not a victory of force. It is a victory of harmony. In a way, this method is a response to the increasingly mechanized world of modern hunting. It represents a restrained approach, a voluntary submission to ecological discipline. Act only when necessary and intervene only as much as the land requires. For those who choose the bow, success is not measured in numbers. It lies in preserving a relationship of respect between humans and the natural world, even in the act of population control. And so, across the hills of the Peloponnese, the struggle between humans and the invasive wild boar continues. Quiet, steady, and enduring, just like the land itself. The hunters here are not chasing glory or fame. They stand between the forests and the fields, between the mountains and the villages, as the final line of defense protecting harvests, livestock, and the peace of an entire community. This conflict is not over, and it will not end as long as the boar continue their push toward the lowlands lands. But one thing remains certain: the people do not step back. They hold the line. They protect their legacy. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, to remind us that safeguarding the land is not just a right but a responsibility, then stay with us. Subscribe to follow the journeys to come. Leave a comment if you wish to explore stories from other regions, and share this video so the voices of those on the front line can be heard. Neo Farm. We stand here where the boundary between humanity and nature is protected every single day.